All right, good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you might be. Scott Henderson here, shooter. And hey, welcome to Swing Trade Notes, weekly recap. And hey, we're going to try and have some fun with some charts, see if we can find some opportunities to get out of this chop and churn we're in. Of course, at the end of the presentation, please do review our disclosure. All right, so we're looking at the S&P or via the SPY. I'm looking at it this way. We got this little shelf here at 676.13. That breaks, then we need to fully trim and get down to, even though I'm sitting at heavy cat. I mean, I'm like 90+% cat, but mainly that's because I haven't bought back crypto. But the bottom line is, I think we are going to test these lows at least at some point. Now, whether we put in a three, because I'm looking at this as like, hey, this is peaking drive 1, 2, and then we're going to get a three maybe up here is the way I look at it. And then we probably reject. So that stop run thesis, I think, is still in play. That line is roughly around 711. So we overshoot that a little bit, and then we head just a little bit lower. So this is the map that I see. I don't think that really changes. We need a pretty definitive breakout for this uptrend to continue where we head back up towards that 1618. But realize history tells us that's the most likely path, since this is our base of Mound 1, our peak of Mound 1, and our corrective wave 2 of Mound 1. It's pretty euphoric, which is not unusual for us to build out this flag. So we could end up here. My timeline is all the way out to May. So we could just be stuck in this chop zone that long out, which is going to make a challenge. Because right now, this pump and dump thing that we're seeing in different names is just absolutely killing premium. We're paying tuition just to play with anything. So we want to be very selective in what we take. And it really, in my opinion, until we get this pullback, it's not time to really add position trades. So, and let's jump over to the NASDAQ, take a look at that. Now we got a little bit of a better pullback here. The shelf holds, which is roughly about 590. There's a good chance that we do head back up towards this magnet. And I think how Nvidia holds up after earnings, I think is going to be a big tell, because there's a little digestion going on in AI and what the heck we're really doing with it. But notice how the MACD cross is waning. It's not, same thing with RSI. It's really in no man's land. We just have this grind zone. Now, this timeline extends out to roughly May as well. And all I'm doing really is measuring the peak of peaking drive 1 and peaking drive 2. And my assumption is it's equality, the way I typically look at things. And the likely retrace is this 382, which we pretty much tested. To me, that's bullish. This low right here is very bullish. Not as bullish of a look in the SPY. So, my thought is that we have more of a chance to get up and out of here based on how the Mag 7 do in this earnings cycle. All right, let me jump over to some names. Oh, it was AMTX. No, I still like the thesis. I still think it comes out of this. I just don't think we have this timeline for energy on AI infrastructure and all that stuff being built out. Until we overcome the power issue, which really starts with the transmission line, I think the primary benefactor is going to be natural gas, like I've said multiple times now. So Amentus is really more of a diesel airline kind of fuel additive in my book. So until the core market gets pricey, I think we're kind of in limbo here. I do change my mind. It gets back above 183, but we really need to get back above 183 and hold. Now, BIS is working. In my opinion, it's still an ad. This is sort of like a wave 3 that we've just completed. So it's fairly high and tight. So the back tests that we get off of this corrective or at wave 5 will really dictate how aggressive prices is going to be. It's still a nice slope. I mean, as far as the trajectory and how it's built out. So, we're probably going to push up to about 117. If we reject here, then it's a flat, and we're probably coming back to this buy side around 94, which is really just these gaps, this confluent zone right here as far as price. But I don't think so with the slope here. If you look at the history of the tape, and when we get that kind of a slope, I mean, we end up having gaps and it runs. However, we haven't had any real decent, we had one little gap here, no decent gaps in comparison. But when this tape does get euphoric, it likes to run. So I do think ultimately we head back to about 138. All right, let's look at Planet Labs working, getting a little resistance here more than I'd like. You know, it's building out this kind of flag and then it's really running into significant resistance here. So, you know, prior support, notice how many times we tested support, came, put one more up, and then we rejected. So, it breaks below the body of this last candle, roughly right at 25, you know, because our next shelf is above there still. We need to really be above 25.44, get above there and clear it till this will play out. But at this point, it's done nothing wrong. It's just grinding right back in the direction we wanted. All right, AVA just is not, it's not doing what it's supposed to, but then again, it's not failed. So, I mean, at this point, we pushed past the invalidation line. I decided not to trim it just because of, look, how much this euphoria is. I like the idea of 50% back at 321 on this one from 260. And it's a name that I happen to like as far as the micro and macro. So we're sitting there waiting for it to play out. If it does take out this wick, then I'll trim it back just like I've done with others. Now, Corsair, at this point, looks like it's going to work. Come out of here. Has a huge, I'm going to pull out just to the weekly on this one to give you a visual to the upside. That's the wave pattern that I see on the breakout here. And ultimately what I'm doing is I'm coming over here and looking what it did before. It is very emotional on the bullish run. We first need to clear this little hurdle here at 763. The real confirmation of the trend changes at 1034. But just like I'm expressing in the tape, I expect that to be noisy. All right. Roblox really has not pulled out of this. I'm just sort of sitting in my spread and waiting for that to actually play out. Trying to pull up and we're at a good spot roughly to build out maybe something like this to the upside. It is like everything else. I've got a pretty clean invalidation zone. I'm going to look at the wick. It takes this out, you know, then I would probably cut back and reduce my position size. So roughly at about 60.45, we get back down there, which is quite a ways down for this name. But I do think we come back. I just think this is a complete reversion to the mean, and we're in this huge broadening formation. If we look at this, you know, which typically play out a specific way, we have a good idea, a good visual of what they'll do. You know, so we'll get something like this back to the upside, and this will be what I look at as our floor. So we have this huge broadening formation here. It really looks just about like this. So, you know, we've tested the floor. We overshot a little bit. And like I always say, on the third drive, we always can overshoot, so we got it. So actually, it's playing right in line with the euphoria that we see in the tape. Not only that, we do have some divergence here on price. So this was kind of our confirming low. So even at best, if this rejects here, you know, we're only looking at maybe down to about $53, which obviously if someone was cost averaging in there, that would be something that would work. But we have some clean divergence here in the name as far as looking back to the upside. All right, Twilio has not really started to do what it's supposed to, but I like the push and the buzz and where the options are and the flow that's going into that. It has popped off of the wick here, so needs to break above this 121. Then we really see whether it gets euphoric. That's actually a pretty decent push. You know, the last times we've gotten these, look at these legs, how aggressive it's been. So, you know, we literally can take this leg and say, hey, the most likely outcome when euphoria comes in following an attempt to push this back is we likely get back up to about 125. And in this market, anything that's holding relative strength that we can get a piece of, obviously I'm going to take it and run. But equality to me really is way the heck up here on this one. Really up here around 156, sort of my thought, where we head back up, which is right around our 1618. And we have some confluence in the tape there. The 168 on the larger structure is way the heck up around 190. All right, let's look at some of the names that I want to pop up. And these are my scans or my most interesting names that I want to jump into and just sort of give a visual here. These are names who have picked up on my 50% scans last couple of days, so I'm kind of watching them. I get real interested above this $26. So, you know, I'm not chasing it. I haven't put it in chat or anywhere else at this point, but it is clearly on my radar. It will not invalidate for me until it clears 2365, but APPN is on my radar. BAM has been on my radar. It's not broken the shelf yet. I mean, it wicked below it, but the body didn't close, so it's still in play as far as I'm concerned. I think we get back to up to about 57. What I would really like is a decent flush in the indices. then I had more conviction jumping into these names long because I do have quite a few setups that I like, but I just don't have conviction that the longs are going to stick here, which makes it challenging. And if you look at this structure, it really is a beautiful looking push, because we've clearly gotten our 5. This is 1, this is 3, and this is 5. Then we got a clean ABC with an extended A here and a shallow C, which is euphoric. And what did we get? We got a very euphoric bounce off. So structurally, beautiful tape. Now we've got this clean 5 wave down. Huge bounce candle off of this ledge right here. I mean, just huge bounce candles. So this structure to me is maybe to the upside. We have a huge new impulse leg potentially building here. So this thing could build up here, and we could be looking at another $75 on this from $50. So once it gets up and above this confirmation line at 55, my conviction is $75. All right, looking at Costco, it's working, coming down to the daily. Little rejection, little noise right here. It did come off the lows that we spoke about when I first put this down there, out there. And I don't know why I don't own a position in it, but that's where it is. So it breaks this 977.81, then my thesis is wrong and we're going back to 937. Then I would be interested in taking a shot there long. But I think we get at least back to this $1,050 here. The stock before that was BAM, Dan. BAM. Brookfield Management, I believe it is. No worries. All right. Then CRML. Now, these are these metals related to Venezuela. And, it has run since we got this nice little pullback to the shelf here. I mean, so it's in a good spot. I'd like a little pullback maybe to 10, and then I'll give a shot long. So this has become a much broader structure. We held back and we were right. That pump that came off of the announcement that we took out Maduro or whatever his name is. So I expect this to be a noisy tape on the way back up. And again, this is going to be a name. I don't have a grasp on the timeline of these events. But my thinking is that once that supply chain re-engages, and what ultimately just is happening in Mexico, is realize Mexico, we're going to lose like 40 to 50% of certain metals like silver mining, as far as those minerals coming out of Mexico, because basically Mexico right now is shut down. And I'm not sure exactly how this is going to play out. We end up in this state for very long. Venezuela will become a bigger piece of the puzzle if that plays out. So, I'm just looking for about $10 and then I want to get back into that. All right, Cisco really has done nothing off this flush that's perfect. I mean, it really is. We're looking at an impulse here. I'm just trying to find a reason to buy it. Whenever I say I'm trying to find a reason to sell it or I'm trying to find a reason to buy it, that means because market sentiment to me is in the opposite direction of where I want it to be to put on those trades. So then I just sit on my hands. And I think it was Bob earlier this morning said, yeah, I'm basically sitting on my hands. And, my thought is that's a great idea right now because we don't want to be in positions where we constantly pay tuition. Looking at these numbers, I think we head back towards this $86 on Cisco. So it's a name I like because it's such a significant part of that infrastructure as it plays out. All right, Frog, this is just pretty, popped up on my radar late yesterday. As far as my scans, I like the push here. 50% back is totally viable at $52. We're at $39. I may even put something on this later this afternoon before the close. The only thing I don't like is that we're confirming. However, the MACD cross is very euphorically curving, and that usually means that that's crossed. So the way I see this is this was flushing drive 1, flushing drive 2, flushing drive 3 from the MACD cross visual. So this is our flushing drive 1, flushing drive 2, flushing drive 3. And notice where we got a midterm divergence. So this is kind of an overshoot. I'd rather that not be there. I'd be higher conviction. But I think we get at least a third general to 41. So my idea is $40 calls, 3 to 6 weeks out, sort of my game plan. I'll paste that in the room or post that in the room when I take that. Intel volume on flow here is huge going into NVIDIA earnings, just huge today and yesterday. So the way I see this is our 1, that's our 2, this is our 3, this is our 4. We're playing out 5, and 5 is probably going to come here. However, being that it's an ending diagonal, it could be a flat and end around 55. So obviously we want to take profit. On top of that, we have some clear resistance bands here where we had decent sells, 29%, 30 million, etc. That is where the institutional buyers bought and sold, these heavy lines that I have marked on my chart. So the way that I see this, is that this is, again, another emotional tape as it builds out this next impulse leg, which we got our 1, we got our 2. So our 3 probably comes in right here. Then we probably get a deep retrace. And then maybe we come out and find our home for our final 5. I'm probably not going to chase that 5, but I surely would like to chase this $55 here, just with the way the market is. All right, LAZ, that also popped up on our radar yesterday late afternoon in the scans. First target is going to be around $52. Again, I'm just looking for a reason to jump on board and put a piece on there. 50% back candidate, pretty solid look to me. The only thing that I don't like is what it did here. Got a nice flush, sort of a dead cat bounce, rejected, gave us another low. So we got a second drive with a lower low in price with clean divergence. So I'm looking at this structure here and like, what did it do before over here? When it got we got a confirming low, then we got absolutely no divergence. So that's no help. As far as how it retraces, it does a lot of the single flushing drives to end the low. So this is a pretty significant low here. So as long as this 48, 46 doesn't get taken out, so we have a really clean line. However, in this market, I don't want to give it any more room than need be. So I'm going to come over here and say, hey, this was our shelf right here, where I noted here. So if it invalidates this 50.31, I would cut to half a position no matter what I entered, sort of as the exit plan with the way market conditions are right. All right, Marvel, still like it, still digesting down here. I'm not really convinced because I want this. I want to get another shot back down here. I'd love this, just a little bit lower. Right here, I would have jumped up. However, this is the name we want for AI infrastructure, and we fully mapped this out. Now, if we look at where our lines are, let me go out to the weekly so you can see where that is. Or it's, the clean risk is back between 39 and $50 down. So do we want to test it here? Probably we do, because this is beautiful wick off. I just, again, back to the market conditions. Where am I comfortable adding longs where I might get run over with these market conditions? And I think NVIDIA does that. Or we're sitting on our hands till FOMC, and then we decide whether we're going to stay in this chop zone or not. And FOMC, I think, either causes us to reject. So those conditions are where I'm going to get more excited. So I'll probably not jump on Marvel just because of this drawdown. But I like the look. Where it is, I think it heads back up towards this 78.6 around 120. So I don't know if you hear my mixed position on a number of these names. I'm mixed because of sentiment and momentum and how few names are running. And if you look at my flow analysis today, I actually stepped down to 100K position size, which I never do. But I wanted to see how many names are. That list should be like 5 times as long as the position size with $1 million plus contract size with $1 million or more. And it's not. So, and it's just like this morning, the whole ramp, breadth was not building. It was negative. It kept getting more negative in that pump. So it tells me that there are a lot of people on the sidelines, and those who are jumping in are really small. So we're not even at a half position size. We're at like a quarter or less, because a quarter position size based on $1 million book, when they're trading those lot sizes, is 250K. So if we don't have the volume at 250K, what do we have? No volume at all. And that makes it even more challenging to add longs. Okay, Rocket Labs, I like right where it's at. And you'll notice I'm pumping because I like where it's at. We got this overshoot, this ledge broke, this ledge held, which is beautiful because this is our current uptrend. So on the larger picture, this is a name that is in or completed mound 1, right? And we're going for mound 2. And we're going up to the top. And with the thesis in space as a service, I just like it. I just like it from here. I just got to get a reason to jump back on board. But I think we take this out and then we're heading back to $100. That's my thought. All right, TSM. Now, I wanted to go over this for a second because of the resistance that we're running into. Now, they have given us a date where they believe, and I'm not recalling it right this second, we are confirming on our tape, but they've given us a date on when they expect China to invade Taiwan. And that is based on how the military buildup is going on. And the question is going to become, are we going to move resources elsewhere? And Taiwan Semiconductor is going to be a major factor in how the U.S. handles this. Are we going to give up on Taiwan, or are we going to be willing to go into World War III to defend it? So we have a lot of geopolitical risk tied to it. So any noise in Taiwan, this thing is going to come off, right? Now notice the way I see this now is we have, this kind of peaking drive 1, peaking drive 2, peaking drive 3. So this is mound 1. So this was our trough. This is our peak. This is our trough. So, from a structural standpoint, right now, the current wave structure that we're in, we're building out wave 3. I don't think that changed. So this should be our longest wave. So I think we still have a shot back up at around 450, 475 from where we are at 388. And I do like the name. The only thing I don't like with this name is the risk associated with Taiwan, which is one of the reasons I picked it to go over today. But notice how euphoric the MACD cross is, along with a confirming RSI. Continuation, 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 written all over. So the market gets pumping. This will be a name that I look to add for a short-term position on the long side. All right, USAR Rare Earths. Daily, I think we're going to head back towards these highs. I think it's had a beautiful drawback, 50% candidate, which I don't even have drawn on this, but if you look from this number here, this looks better than UUU does at this point. 1684, roughly is our base. 50% back is around $24. We're at $20. So we have nice strikes here. Get any pullback, we're sort of seeing this. Let me bring up another tool. Can you tell I had 3 cups of coffee today? I'm like, going, take it. All right, so we get a pullback to like 1927. Boom, I'm in. I'll put a position on. I'll post it in chat when we get there. All right, let's go over some requests. Let's look at the weekly here. I don't think it's done, even though it could be. I love when I do that. It's kind of the middle of it. Part of it is I don't think the AI security, AST, I'll get to it shortly, Brian. Looking at this is our 2, this is our 3, this is our 4. Our 5 kind of equality is closer to about 331, as far as that number. So, I think it's got more downside, just real simply. Gets above this body, this 385, then I'm wrong. Then we got a shot getting back up to the high side. But the fact that this shelf's broke, I would rather chase it here at clean risk between 287 and 350, 375. That's just my 2 cents. But it is a name in our AI infrastructure plan, the 2030 survival blueprint thesis that I've come up with. And it is a name we want to own once this market gets through the correction with this AI. And I think we do find a floor soon, but it might not be till next quarter. So we might be sitting on our hands quite a little bit. All right, EOS. We put a little position back on this simply because we tested this wick, did not reject, and to the extent where we did not take out 50% of this candle. So I think we're heading up to this 1317. This shelf held nicely, beautiful, beautiful back. Flushing drive 1, flushing drive 2, flushing down 3, and then we had an overshoot. Beautiful thing. It's gonna bounce. I know it is. Back to the $16 at some point. All right, let's look at PLTR. Now, I think we're going to build this flat. I pulled my impulse leg down. I just think we're, so we probably get a little better price. I might be wrong. We take out this 141, then I am, and we're going to run from right here. But I like the name. What I didn't like, what came in was this overshoot after we got we got clean divergence right here. Clean, right here, boom. Right. And then we put in a sort of a double bottom, and we have not taken out this wick. That's so, my thought is this is what that looks like as far as a pattern, or my thought. All right, BMY, not done. This thing breaking out, takes out this 59.85, then I'd trim down to half so that 59.24 has to hold, breaks below there, then I'd be up. So looking at BTC futures, I think we get a little bounce here. I mean, it looks pretty good. So did Ethereum, and I'll go over that in a second, but this is what I see. I think it's a dead cat bounce. I do. However, if it comes, and the main reason that I think it's dead cat bounce is because it's flushing drive. Right here, it confirmed, but we got no divergence. So the most likely outcome is dead cat bounce, and then we come back and put in one more lower low between 50 and 55. That's just my thought. In just knowing how the fibs work in the extensions, how they connect RSI, etc. So cleanly, the MACD crosses. Yeah, it says we will bounce. So it's chaseable. I mean, if you want to take on IBITs here, it's probably a good trade if that's something you want to do. All right, so Coach, just absolutely a euphoric beast here. And I know I reviewed it here at some point. I might have even put that over in fundamental trends to the upside. My range on 3 is up to around 222. You're in it, hold it. I wouldn't chase it here because we're in our second general. here for sure. So we probably do get that third. Then we're going to have a decent reject. Should come back to a 190. So don't be greedy. Take some profits up there around 220. CRM. I don't think it's ready yet. Okay, and let me go out to the monthly on this one because I wanted to show the bigger picture here. So we have this longer term trend support down here. Now our first shelf is here. We wick below it. See that body, even though we didn't close below it, there's a difference between a wick and a body. As long as the body doesn't close below this ledge, it's not done. Okay. The wick, the body of the candle closes below this ledge. Then we are going to our second shelf. Now, the problem with the way this shelf looks is it looks like a reversion to the mean play because what we have here is this peaking drive 1, peaking drive 2, peaking drive 3, and we have a reversion to the mean base. So that means this likes to dump. Well, if we look at the expansion here, what I don't like is the way this look is from this speed line. And thank you, Dale Pinkert, for that knowledge in time because it's been an absolute perfect tool. So in his theory is we're looking for a back test at 55 and the larger side of the wave is we're looking for a high side up here, but we've already gotten our third push. So peaking drive 1, peaking drive 2, peaking drive 3, the upside looks done until this is resolved to the downside. So there's a very good possibility we continue to this shelf. We have a lot of confluence right here in price. So, I wouldn't test it in this market here. It's got more risk than I would want to put on. That's just my 2 cents. All right, Ethereum. Let's look at the daily on this. I think it gets up and out, similar dead cat bounce. However, I do think it's an impulse. I think it pushes back to about 3K. I think this gap doesn't get filled based on how I was looking at it. A lot of it has to do with the RSI and what the MACD looks like. We've crossed. We've just started green. Look at the history of how we do this. So we have, roughly, what are we, daily? So we have 7 to 10 days of green candles. We just got one. So we got 7 or 10 more days of green. What's the likely outcome? If we look at our last green push, let's just take this little wave right here and copy it. Or forgive me, I'm just going to do it this way because it'll be quicker than drawing the leg out. Let's just copy this. So this is a good distance to say, hey, this is probably what we get here. So we probably get a push back up to about 2,500. Then we get a retrace, and then we see if we're going to put it in an impulse or it is going to fully reject there as far as higher price. And honestly, time will only tell us. So let's look at Sentinel-1. Let me come out to the weekly. It's still bleeding. It's not done. It's overshot. Body didn't close below it, but we're below both these wick. We wick below it. I'm just looking at the count. It's an ending diagonal. What I don't like is it took out equality. Hold on, I'm looking again. I'm not recalling what I saw here. We're confirming on our SI. It's not done. Trend support is way down here, $10. It's not a huge drop lower. It's 20%. But if it takes out the body of this candle at 1382, then we got a shot. In this market, I wouldn't play with it until we get there. That's my 2 cents. Or I'd wait for $10 and take a shot at 10. SMR is still bleeding. What we do have is clean divergence here, though. Flushing drive 1, flushing drive 2. Most we're going to get is a flushing drive 3 around 1035. And then it takes off and goes. Again, this timeline's a little difficult, is why I don't own this at this point. As soon as the market started getting soft, then this was the name. Even though I like the thesis behind it, I like the macro, I like the micro, it crossed below this line, I would have closed my position if I had something open. SYNA, I think it's got one more leg lower. We're rejecting right here at this resistance band where we were before. Wicks, 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 wicks. All right. Wicks, it likes to flush. So I think if it gets back and this 61 holds, then it's worth another shot long. Could be. I might be measuring this wrong. We have a pretty significant impulse down. Then we get this ABC here, right? And then we start this next leg down. The question is whether this is our 3 or this was our 3. And because we could come back here, basically say this is our 3, this is our 4, and this is our 5. We could say that. That's valid. All right. However, what I was measuring when I come back and I look at equality, I want to see what the tape looks like when you have equal legs relative to what a leg should be. So wave 3 should be our longest wave, not our shortest wave. So that brought me down here. And then confluence as far as equality from wave 2, unless otherwise directed, like, hey, an ending diagonal is a valid count here. So it's just going to depend on whether we have a shallow overshoot of this price right here, because that can happen, just like on the high side, bear side, same thing. Get a slight overshoot, or do we push to the fibs? That's the question, whether we get that sell-off. So if you're in it, I'd be trimming. That's my 2 cents. UMAC, let's look at a daily on this one. I actually like the look of it. I had this crosses or I should have said crosses. I only put cross, test long. That was valid until it takes out this new confirming trend support that's sort of been created out of this, which is roughly right about here. Bring that up. Confirming trend support. Where's my thing? Confirming trend support. There it is. All right. So unless we take this out, roughly 1321 would be the levels I would use. And that's how I would run with this because that's roughly it. So, and roughly, if it's going to stick for me. Okay. 757 and 1321 is what I would use. Otherwise, I'd ride this. See if it gets us out of this in this market. All right, let's look at UUU. I think it's got a huge upside. I'm going out to the monthly on this one. Just look at the breadth. I mean, it's just, we're going to push back up. And I'm being conservative. I'm saying it rolls over and we reject. I'm looking at this, this prior slope, and I'm saying that we reject this price here. That might not be the case. Where else in this tape has it been really euphoric? Right here, okay? And what do we have similar? It's broader and bigger. One thing price likes to do, it likes to expand. So if you look at the prior history of this tape, we had this expansion, right? And we rejected price, came back pretty deep. What did we get? We got this expansion in price right here. What did we do? We rejected price a little bit. However, this is more euphoric than this. And then after that, we got this run. So ultimately, we can come in and just say, this is what this tape likes to do. The most likely outcome is that we're going to push right here, which is pretty much exactly where I drew my impulse wave, where it builds out kind of a flat top around 41. So, I would not trim if I owned this at this point. All right, let's get to the last few names that we had here. So Lunar, LUNR, come down to the daily. Boom. Probably get an ABC here. Probably rolls over here. ABC. 1 is A. Let's call that B up there. Stick. C equality is probably at least to here. Probably taste on the base of this band would be better. So 11, I'd be trimming if I was still in this. Had clean divergence to the upside. Breaks back above 2035. I'm wrong. And then this is just our push. But looking at the structure here, what I see is a collection of ABCs, A, B, C, or excuse me, A, B, C. And obviously you can have impulse waves on A, B, or C. It just depends on the euphoria of the tape. And then you have another, A, B, C, right? Then we really have another A, B, and this could be a C, an elongated C. So the most likely outcome is we get another ABC because this price right here is full. That's my thought. Your risk model, if I was holding, it depends. If I held, I would not be holding calls, period. Common shares, depending on what you pay, because you could cost average if we pull back to 1265. And I do like the thesis with intuitive machines as far, AI has not really produced what I would say a industrial revolution kind of push where we have these leaps and bounds in design and engineering. It hasn't washed down. I mean, we have some, but it's not like, hey, we just invented a new hypertunnel to Mars. We're not getting those kinds of evolutions here. So in machines and robotics and things like that, I think we're in kindergarten. I don't even think we're in infancy yet. I think we're at the very beginning. So, this is the name I do like for that. I just don't know the timeline. All right, IIPR, nice pop off those lows. Notice my comment, buyers should have shown up. They did show up. They just showed up late. Again, Elliott Wave has no time constraints. The only thing I don't like is what I see is a C down here at 26. We got to take this wick out. Right now, 59.85. I'm not interested until it gets above that. Just because of the look. I don't. You got a 5 wave here, right? So this is our 1, this is our 2, this is our 3, this is our 4, this is our 5. You got an impulse here, right? This is our 1, this is our 2, this is our 3, this is our 4, this is our 5. So what likely is this? And we've already got our 1, this is 2, this is 3, right? Call this 3. So we get a little bit of back test. That's going to be 4, likely 5. So we probably test this low. And the reason I say that's a wick off. I don't remember what that event was, but it likely overshoots that. It may be a penny. This shelf right here is where I would be most interested, about 38 bucks. Is just my thought. All right, NVO. Anybody still in VRT, by the way? I was noticing that sucker kept running without. That's probably got to be about the most frustrating thing. Well, we took out the prior body of the candle. Good job, David. I wouldn't be holding it here. No, because it's going to come down to 29. I'm not sure what your cost basis is. We do have a little divergence down here. I just do not like the look. How bad did they report? I didn't follow it. Did they report bad NVO or guide lower? I don't remember when was their earnings. Boom, 15%. Oh, they cut the Wegovy price. Well, of course, that just absolutely killed it. Well, they failed the drug test and they cut the Wegovy price. Oh, no, VIRT. That's good you're in it then. All right, let's go to our last thing, Unity. We haven't looked at that. How perfect was that count, huh? Hope to God none of you held it through that. I don't remember when was the last time I looked at it. Good spot, though, right here. Huh? We have clean divergence down here. Yep. Ooh, those are some ugly Bollinger Bands. Ooh, small cap. I don't know, especially with what's going on with Palantir. That could bounce here. It's right at trend support. That's why we're seeing a little reaction. I mean, it's right at trend. I mean, right there. It's working off below. Going to the weekly. We have no divergence. In this situation, I would wait for divergence or until we take back this leg before I entered or added anything. So that would be my line in the sand just because of the low. So that would get me interested on chasing along. And I would only be chasing it as a dead count bounce to about $30. Well, there is a significant, because this, sentient AI is ultimately, it will replace a majority of the software applications. Right now, most of the software applications are trying to add AI so they can sort of box in the existing customers. Because, one of the biggest things with AI, and I'm dealing with it now, is this freaking learning curve. I mean, because this one AI does a great job at this, but then it does a really crappy job at this, et cetera. So I think a lot of the sauce kind of services are dead. And all you need is the match to light the flame, like earnings or whatever with a name, and then they're just going to get absolutely destroyed because once the market sentiment changes and we, learn that dynamic of sauce, I honestly want to avoid sauce because of that. So good spot. After this gap, I'm just looking at the count here. It's really an impulse down. Went to this shelf, overshot it. I'd like it better at clean risk between 67 and 74 to enter. I'm just looking at still confirming down here. I like the thesis of space for a service. So I mean, it depends on what your risk threshold position size, what you would want to put on there. I think it does have more upside. Let's go out to the weekly and see where that. So the 1618 is up around 157. That's the most logical destination. TE. I almost put this one in chat this morning. I almost added here on that gap. My alert went off. Breaks above that confirmation. I definitely put a piece on to chase it to 10. I mean, it looks good here off of this pullback. Pretty solid. Clean buyers came in. And realize it's not a big enough name price-wise. So this isn't institutional. This is retail liking a name. So I like it to the upside. I like the wave count. Ultimately, it's heading to $11. So was it Netflix? We're looking at Mosaic. That done. Good spot to bounce, though. I didn't even see RSI and I didn't see MA. It's rolling up. That's bottom line. This is an ending diagonal, larger picture. So this is our 1, this is our 2, this is our 3, this is our 4, and we're going to get a 5. We'll probably either just overshoot this or it comes down to one of these levels from here for an extent. So no, not here. How often do I say that? I could be wrong though. Gets back above that into that gap, then you got a shot at a bounce, at least back up to $30. And honestly, in this market, it is really easy just to be wrong. I mean, it is so moody that bam. All right, Netflix, good spot. And this actually, there was a lot of chatter on this morning from this run. Ran $2, breaks above this 84.59, 90, $95. It's a good chase, actually, right from where we are now. It really is. So anything else, folks? Fantastic, guys, gals. Thanks for joining me. Until next time. I appreciate you guys, gals. Kudos, Janet. That was a good pick, by the way. Good job.